Hello, I'm Melanie Bunn. I'm a dementia training consultant with Dementia Alliance of North Carolina, and I've been invited to do a program on sexuality and intimacy. And my friend and colleague, Dee Dee Harris.
Hi, I'm Dee Dee Harris. I'm the Family Service Director for Dementia Alliance, and excited to be here to help Melanie today, I think.
Yeah, so this is a topic that many people are uncomfortable talking about, and the reality is we really shouldn't be, because sexuality is really just part of life, and sex is part of life. It's the part of the brain that drives the desire for sex is the same part of the brain that drives the need for eating, and the need for drinking, and the need for sleep, and the need for rest, and the need for. So it's really not anything dirty or inappropriate, but a lot of times we use these words to describe something that's really very natural and part of life. What kind of words have you heard people describe normal sexuality as? The person is being a
Pervert.
pervert. The person is being a pervert, or
But I like it when you said the word dirty, because I've heard that. It's kind of like, and even in conversations with families, I hear that.
yeah, that it's wrong. There's something wrong about it, or something dirty about it. And there was a kind of an ongoing joke about your parents
Oh, yeah.
being
We don't talk about
intimate
that.
or having sex, and that
They didn't, did they?
Well, I hope they did at some point. Otherwise, a lot of us have been really confused. So it kind of helps, and the reason it's there is because it helps us survive as a species, but it's also surrounded by a lot of no-don'ts. And a lot of limitations and a lot of interpretation. And some of that might be societal, some of that might be cultural, some of that might be our families, our family rules and expectations are, and some of it might be faith-based. So what we're going to be talking about in this bit of time that we've got together is those issues of intimacy and sexuality, whether you're talking about between you and a long-term partner, or you and somebody in your family, or whether you're talking about people who are part of a care community, a long-term care facility or assisted living. So we're going to be offering some thoughts and ideas for all of those people around this really important issue. So the issues in dementia have a big range. It can be everything from too much interest to no interest at all, or not enough interest or little interest. It could be the wrong place. It could be the wrong type. It could be the wrong person. The wrong person is a big one. But all of those things kind of come from something that is around this idea of touch. Now, you'll see on your screen, there is two pictures of two men, and they're touching the bottoms of another person. The first picture has a sports player who's kind of patting the rump of somebody as they walk off the field. Neither of them look distressed. Do you watch sports, Dee Dee?
I do, a lot.
Do you see that happen a
A
lot?
lot.
Does it seem sexual?
No, not at all.
It doesn't seem sexual at all. The other picture you see is, you can tell this is not reciprocal. This guy is touching this woman's bottom, and she isn't liking it. She's not giving him the go-ahead. She's giving him the stop look. And that does look kind of sexual. And almost, if you look at his face, that almost looks kind of predatory in some ways. So the same touch can have different experience, different interpretation. So I want us to really, as we deal with this issue, to really take a moment and think about those words that we use to describe. I got a call once, and the call was, this man is being sexually aggressive towards women. And when I went in and saw what was happening, he was sitting in a rocking chair. He had a woman sitting on his lap, and he was rocking in the rocking chair. And as we explored, we realized that he had been a farmer who had arthritis early in his life. But farmers never take a day off. Everybody on the farm works. And so because of his arthritis, he couldn't work in the fields. His job became to children and the baby. So he spent hours of his adult life sitting on the porch.
Rocking the children.
Rocking the babies.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't sexual at all. So that's the one thing I kind of want to make sure we start and think about. What do you think about that, Dee Dee?
No, I think that's exactly right. Because like I said, even in the pictures, you know, it's how like you said, it's time, it's place, but it is looking at history too. And so we have to take all that in consideration, especially when we're dealing with people with dementia who are doing things that they're not being able to explain why they're doing. You know what I'm saying? So we have to look at all those things.
Yeah. And that's right, to explain what they're doing or even to control what they're doing.
Absolutely, yeah.
Because this urge comes from our brain, whether we choose to do it or not. Now, I control my urges. You know, I have impulse control. Do this with me. Impulse control. I have impulse control because my brain is healthy. So I can choose if I see someone who attracts me, how I communicate that attraction, or if I communicate that attraction or interest. That person living with dementia, because of the change that's going on in this part of their brain, there's an image of this part of your brain, and if you look at it, you notice the top brain is the brain of the person who doesn't have dementia. There's lots of gray matter around the outside, lots of white matter on the inside. If you look at that bottom picture, not as much gray matter, not as much white matter, and so that person living with dementia loses some of that ability to follow those social rules, to control some of those impulses. So we've got this innate drive for connection and sex, and we take it and we go, not here, not now, not you. And the person living with dementia, that impulse doesn't work the same way, and there's some things that still do work. And one of the things that still does work are these visual cues. So you see an image of two couples, and it's a mother and a daughter and a father and a son-in-law, I guess. And if you look at those two women, they look very similar. And so none of these people have dementia to my knowledge, so don't start that rumor. But if dad gets dementia and daughter comes in, she looks a lot like mom. And so dad may look at daughter and may not see daughter, but see
mom,
see his wife. And not only his wife, but his wife when they were courting and they fell in love and they got married and and so he may respond to that visual cue of wanting to be in that intimate, touching, sexual relationship with his daughter, but not really his daughter.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Because like you said, so much of dementia is thinking further, you know, their memories of the current, and so they may not recognize the wife as even their wife anymore, but yes, the daughter may very much resemble the earlier days. And so, and we do get a lot of families, this is something they deal with a lot.
It's really important, and it's really common. And so if you look at father and son-in-law, you could see the same thing might happen to mom. She looks at her son-in-law and she goes, that looks a lot like the husband that I fell in love with and married, or the partner I fell in love with and I married, so, or fell in love with and spent my life with. So these kinds of visual cues become really important. And even things like, if I'm standing right in front of Dee Dee, and Dee Dee has dementia, and she has some brain change. And one of the changes that happen is back here in the brain, this occipital lobe. And so Dee Dee's having some changes back there in that occipital lobe. So her vision is kind of down to this, and her body is changing a little bit. So so what she's looking at is right there.
Yeah.
Whoops. If you see it, you reach out and touch it, right? So that is just a normal kind of response. Or if I bend over to pick up something, it's right there in front of her. And so it's just a response to what you see. So those kinds of confusing kinds of things happen all the time. So if I don't want her paying attention to this area, then I might need to put something else that we share this space so I'm not right in front of you. Or I do keep it covered and blend it in, or I make some different kinds of choices. So thinking about people are just responding to those visual cues. And part of that visual cue is what's going on in the environment. So if we're sitting in a bedroom and the main thing in the bedroom is the bed, and the main thing we used to do in the bed is have sex, that's going to be what I'm interested in, whether my partner is interested or not. So thinking about where are we spending our time, and what are those visual cues that we're giving to people. So that's a little bit about what's going on. So what can you do about it? Well, people have tried medications, and I checked this morning, and there are no medications that really make people not want to have that drive. So that is part of what happens in just survival, is that drive, and there aren't any medications that are really going to take away that drive. So that's not at the top of my list. What I do think about are the 6 P's. And you've got this on a slide that you can look at. So the first P is the problem, and that is probably the most important place to start. Is it really a problem? Because when we start thinking about what the person is doing is not as a problem or a behavior, but really is a communication. So what I'm communicating to you is I'm interested in sex. Or what I'm communicating to you is I'm interested in intimacy, being close, but I'm not sure how to make that happen. So start with, is it really a problem? And then move into, who is this person? What is this person's sexual history? What is this person's intimacy history? Because if I slept with my sister in a bed the entire time we were growing up, and then I got married and I slept with my husband in a bed for 62 years. When I'm living in a long-term care facility, that sleeping in that bed by myself might not work.
Right. So it might be very normal to find that person in someone else's bed with them. Nothing to do with sexual, just that need to have somebody beside them,
just
correct?
That need for physical closeness. Yeah. It may also be that you find that person in that bed with that person, and it is something sexual. So we look at those two situations differently. They're different needs, and we look at them differently. We look at what is the possible cause of the, is it a visual cue? Is it something in the environment? Is it something in the approach? Hey, sweetie, is it something that kind of makes me think our relationship is this instead of thinking our relationship is this? So is it something in the care partner approach?
Right.
Is it something about what's going on in the environment? Is it the time of day? This is the time of day when we used to, or is it the situation? Yeah.
But it sounds like, again, it's not just overreacting, like it's typical, but to really stop and take the time and try to look through these pieces to see kind of all these things of what is the determining thing going on. And like I said, even if it is part of just the desire that they have, again, there's ways that we're going to talk about that you can do that. It's still a normal process.
It's still a normal process. Yeah. And so then you come up with a plan. That's what Dee Dee was talking about, is what is your plan going to be? So your plan might be to give the person some privacy to take care of that need that they can take care of by themselves. The issue might be we build privacy for couples who want to be connected in an intimate sexual kind of way. It might be that we build connections of other ways to show affection, to build that physical connection that meets that need without necessarily making either partner feel uncomfortable. And it may be that what works is to say, sex is a great idea. That sounds fantastic. I would love to do that. Let's do this first. So you're not saying no, you're saying not now. So the partner or the spouse comes up, the person is in the kitchen fixing dinner, touching starts, I love you and I want to be with you, and that is a fantastic idea. I can get there if you'll help me tear up this list. So now my partner's over there tearing up lettuce and will be busy doing something else. Is that going to work every time? Is that going to work for everybody? But it's something that you can try, or thinking about the environment, thinking about the visual cues that are going on, and thinking about how we can actually do hands-on helping. So Dee Dee and I are now going to put on a set of gloves, and we're not putting these gloves on because we're for our protection. We're putting these gloves on so you can see what our hands are doing. So I'm going to show you a hand position. If I shake hands with Dee Dee, and then I shift into a butterfly, and then I fold my hands over. This is now a position called hand under hand. Teepa Snow has done a lot of work with this hand under hand kind of thing. It now gives me the ability to use my hand, and Dee Dee, if you'll turn towards the camera, I can now use my hand to help Dee Dee manage even intimate kinds of things. Yeah. So now, Dee Dee, when you're doing this, what does that feel like to you?
Well, it feels like I'm still...
So it feels like you're still in control of it, you're still doing it, you're still involved, right?
Exactly.
And what are you looking at if we're in the bathroom?
Well, I can see myself, so I can see things. I'm not even really paying attention to you.
Yeah, because I can actually step back a little farther.
So I feel like I'm in control even more because I'm looking at what I'm doing.
Yeah, and you're standing in front of the toilet, or you're standing in front of the shower, or you're standing somewhere where it makes sense. Now turn and face me, Dee Dee. Okay. So if you're facing me, and put your binoculars on, where is your vision, and look where you're looking, and now I'm working here. What does that feel like?
Ooh, wait a minute. Yeah.
Or you can grab my hands and push me away.
And then,
or
it can be,
you want more.
I'm going to pull you towards me.
Yeah, depending on
what the situation is for that person. Yeah. But it can give a cue to, ooh, they're touching me there. That means,
Yeah. And so it's something that can be helpful. So that person can be used in a lot of different ways. That can be used to help somebody with their sexual needs, but it can also be used to help it keep it in the spectrum of cleaning, not sex, which is important as well. Both of those things are important. So hope this has been helpful. Hope we've talked about some of your questions, and even more than that, hope that we've opened up a conversation. The reality is, I'm a person, Dee Dee's a person, we're different people. You're all different people, and all of your people living with dementia have unique backgrounds, experiences, needs. So what works for one person might not work for another. I'm going to really encourage you to think about these things, to work with them a little bit, to consider them, and to reach out for support, to reach out for education, to reach out for resources, to reach out for that support in problem solving. So sometimes if you talk it through with Dee Dee, or you talk it through with me, or you talk it through in a support group, people might have ideas or look at a situation a little differently than you do. So don't go through these situations by yourself. Reach out for support and education and resources. Thank you very much for joining us, and I look forward to seeing you on another Monday with Melanie. And maybe we'll get Dee Dee in here again.